Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have ice, rain and wind warnings in force, as we do have very unsettled conditions coming in from the southwest, but still cold air trying to hold on in the north and the east. Well, if we look at the UKV, look at the precipitation and the temperature. So it's remaining fairly chilly this week with overnight frosts looking quite likely most evenings, where we do see clearer skies, and it's going to be unsettled as well with a lot of precipitation around, in a generally cooler week with surface temperatures more towards average, maybe even below average. Then we'll have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the Ensembles, as we have continued to look at the possibility of higher pressure blocking towards the end of the month and start of December. And today we're seeing a little bit more agreement from the models, with higher pressure building in at day 10, building in for the first couple of days of December. And all three runs today try and get that higher pressure further northwards and try to pull in colder air masses. Now, depending on each one we have a look at, it's more successful, and the air masses to our east and our north are varying, but very interesting seeing that today. If we saw that continue over the next couple of days, then we really could be on for a colder spell. Now, I'm not thinking anything too exceptional at this stage, just because the air masses to our north and our east are not ridiculously cold this time of year. But if we got those upper air temperatures below -5, wouldn't be surprised. If we got it below -5 for a few days, I wouldn't be surprised to be seeing widespread wintry potential. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, winter could be arriving very, very soon, all dependent on what's happening with this high pressure that is now appearing to be building in for the start of December. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. To start on the live radar, you can see it is going to be a very wet day today. We're recording this around 9 AM, and you can see heavy precipitation is pushing in from the southwest, gusty winds, significant rainfall for some. And you can see where we've got these yellows and reds, it's very heavy torrential rain. You can see on the back edge of this precipitation band these lines of red here, school features, and those are pushing in from the west, and of course this is going to be covering the whole of the British Isles over the course of the next sort of 12 hours or so. So yeah, it's going to be a very wet day. So if you're seeing this and the rain hasn't arrived with you yet, which will probably only be the far north and east, do be prepared. But yeah, it's going to be a very wet day, and we're going to continue to see bands of precipitation move in over the course of the next few days. If you put on those temperatures, it's a cold day. You can see in the north and the east where we have clearer skies, away from the precipitation and cloud, temperatures widely drop towards the low single digits, if not towards freezing. Further south and westwards, much milder towards the high single digits, where we do have the thicker cloud and the rain. And that's sort of going to be the sort of the recipe for the week in terms of temperatures. Wherever we see clearer skies and lack of cloud and precipitation, those temperatures will fall and will remain quite low. But wherever we see cloud and rain push in, it will bring those temperatures up quite significantly. So yeah, blues in the north and the east at the moment, but those will be more widespread and in other parts of the country over the course of the next few days, as we continue to see colder weather generally start to take over. If you look at the weather warnings, we do have that yellow warning in force for eastern Scotland. It expires in about 20 minutes. There's no point looking at that. We do have that wind warning for the south and the west. The winds have downgraded a little bit. There's still possibility of 70 to 80 miles per hour along the southern side of the lower pressure. So do make sure you stay alert for that. Could be some stormy conditions, especially on the coast. And we do have a rain warning across parts of Northern Ireland. Heavy rain may cause some flooding and disruption to travel during Monday. Again, look at the further details. 15 to 25 millimetres and maybe 20 to 40 millimetres. Once again, high likelihood and high impact. So yeah, it could be quite severe, this. And again, we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. As we saw by the live radar, very heavy rain pushing in. So yeah, you could see a lot of rain in a short space of time over the course of today. So yeah, do stay alert for that. But other areas, of course, as well, will be seeing heavy rain. So don't think if you're not in this yellow warning zone, you're not going to be seeing heavy rain. Everyone's going to be seeing heavy rain. Just the likelihood is higher there. Now go over to the UKV and have a look at those precipitation and temperature charts over the course of the next 5 days. You can see the precipitation heading in at the moment. Very heavy rain, all those bright colours pushing in from the west, slowly migrating further northwards and eastwards, and by around 3 p.m. this afternoon it's starting to clear further northwards and eastwards and starting to decrease in intensity. Still a few squally features on the back edge, the main band of rain losing its intensity, and then heavier showers pushing in from the south and the west. Overnight, as we do progress through, it does eventually start to turn a little bit drier. You can see through the early hours of Tuesday more heavier rain in the south and the west, and again more precipitation in the north. And as we head into Tuesday, you can see dry conditions across central areas, most likely frost to wake up there, and colder temperatures in general. And by Tuesday afternoon, it's actually a relatively dry day. A few showers here or there in the north and the east, maybe the south and the west, but generally in between systems. As we head through Tuesday evening into Thursday, another weather front pushes in, so not too long of dry weather. And of course, the east and north of this will be a frost developing, and eventually that low pressure will push in and give some heavier rain through Wednesday morning before clearing probably around mid-afternoon. More showers following behind it, and that will continue through Tuesday all the way into Thursday, again mainly affecting the west. And you can see a more heavier rain pushing in again once again on Thursday, and just continuing this barrage of westerly winds. But as I said, in the longer term, it's looking likely we do see drier conditions push in, but also colder conditions as well. If you put on those 2 meter temperatures, you can see this morning widely around that freezing mark in the north and the east, further south and westwards, more down towards sort of 9 or 10 degrees. This afternoon, hovering only a few degrees above freezing in the north, but further southwards maybe 8 to 10 degrees, but we have thicker cloud and precipitation, so it's going to be widely quite a cold day, regardless of those temperatures in the south. Under that precipitation, it's going to feel cold, so do wrap up warm today. It is going to be pretty horrible out there. As we head through Monday evening into Tuesday, you see again a frost in a few areas where you have clearer skies, and by Tuesday morning, you again 1 or 2 degrees across the Midlands, East Anglia, parts of Wales, and Scotland, of course. And by Tuesday afternoon, once again, only hovering around 4 or 5 degrees in some areas, maybe 6 to 8 degrees in others. Tuesday night into Wednesday, again, frost in areas that are clear skies, even into central southern England potentially, and into Wednesday afternoon, you see the temperatures rising, maybe 8 to 10 degrees, so slightly milder there. And again, Wednesday night, not dropping quite as low, maybe only 5 to 7 degrees widely and freezing in the north of Scotland. And Thursday afternoon, again, slightly milder, 10 to 12 degrees. That's probably a bit of a warmer sector moves in. And again, for Friday, temperatures are cold overnight, but not ridiculously cold. And by Friday afternoon, again, 8 to 10 degrees. And for early hours of Saturday, perhaps dropping slightly lower, more towards those low single digits. So quite a cold week coming up and quite unsettled. So do wrap up warm if you are going out, as it does look likely to be a little bit chilly and miserable out there at times. But higher pressure could be building in the longer term. For the longer term, and that is what we're going to be having a look at next. So we run over to the GFS and see what that is showing over the next few weeks. Again, we've got that Scandinavian high, but it's going to sort of degrade away over the course of the next couple of days, with generally westerly winds favouring. However, as we head into the weekend, look at this high pressure building from the south, initially bringing us a bit of a southerly wind, so it could be quite mild, before it builds over the top of us. And look at this, in around 8-9 days' time, around that sort of 200 hours, easterly winds come in. Look at that, quite a cold air mass as well, pushing in from the east, and the high pressure actually migrates towards Greenland and pulls in quite a bitterly cold northerly wind. Really interesting seeing this today. Again, it is one run, it's not guaranteed to come off, but yeah, very interesting seeing that. And this would send us very cold for the first week of December, most likely widely in around the low single digits and not towards freezing, and give widespread winteriness even to low-lying areas, probably in the south, because not only colder air masses pushing in, but at the time now we've got very weak solar radiation, so in the daytime those temperatures will be hovering hardly above freezing, so it'll be very cold. Now if you do run it back and actually have a look at the raw upper air temperatures, you can see initially not hugely cold, but eventually a cold air mass pushes in from the east. That would turn us cold, maybe snowy in the south and the east, or we have tighter isobars, so more showers, and that eventually pulls in a relatively cold air mass before milder air pushes in for a time, but we see a flood of proper Arctic air in around the 7th. Again, this is extended range stuff, but that sort of pattern that we see from day 10 is very likely to lead to that. Again, it depends on how much of this air out of Eastern Europe and Russia could we drag our way. Now again, if we run it back as well and look at the potential equivalent temperature. You see initially very cold, we stay in the darker blues all the way to the end of the run where we see a flood of perhaps even purples moving in, which is really, really cold air. So again, GFS, very cold today, very interesting seeing this, but the most interesting thing is the other runs also kind of match up till day 10. If you look at the GEM, you can see that high pressure towards Scandinavia at the moment is getting pushed away, and eventually westerly winds push in, and then we see the high pressure building around day 6, day 7. It does struggle initially, low pressure trying to push it out of the way, while high pressure extends in at day 10. And look at that, we're starting to get an easterly flow in. Quite cold at the surface at this point, below average, most likely an inversion to start, but that could turn even colder once these air masses start to get nudged in from the east. Again, all dependent on how far north the higher pressure gets, but for the time being, this is following on nicely from the GFS and showing a quite similar pattern, not exactly the same because the GFS had easterly winds at day 10, but quite a similar pattern up until day 10. If you go to the ECMWF, see how that does compare till day 10. Again, high pressure up towards Scandinavia sort of moving away and low pressure rumbling in off the Atlantic. And as we're toward day 7, high pressure starts to build in. And at day 10, again, is building in over the top of us and actually up towards Greenland more here. And we are starting to see a bit of a northerly flow. Look at the temperatures, starting to drag in a colder northerly air mass. Nothing ridiculously cold at this stage, but similar pattern in terms of high pressure ridging in and trying to push to our north. Probably not as similar to the GFS as the GEM was, but all three runs showing high pressure pushing to our north. None of these westerly pests from the west patterns, and none of them just going for high pressure over the top of us, all trying to push northwards. And we can see this even better by having a look at the ensembles. Definitely a shift in the longer term for more colder runs, not all of them, but definitely a few more, maybe getting up towards half now, getting below average, if not getting down towards sort of colder areas, which is sort of -4 to -6 for the first few days of December. The next sort of a week up to 10 days is generally around average, sort of oscillating above and below, and of course towards the surface probably average to maybe slightly below. But in the long term, that's where the interesting feature comes, is the operational run and the control run both going quite sustainedly cold, down toward that -4 to -8 degree range. Again, nothing ridiculously cold, but cold enough to give widespread snowfall and widespread wintry conditions. Temperatures towards freezing and the potential for wintry precipitation out of the sky. Interesting seeing that today, and definitely a drier trend as well, symbolic of higher pressure building in. Again, you have the dew points, and you can see definitely a lot colder dew points in the longer term, showing colder air masses. And again, look at the sea level pressure, definitely rising in the longer term as well. So high pressure likely to build in. So regardless of if it gets cold, we can see any bitterly cold air masses, it's likely to turn quite a bit drier in the longer term. And if we have a look at the ECMWF ensembles, not as much a trend to colder runs, but definitely a lot more cold runs around that 1st to 5th of December point. And again, we'll just have to see what happens. I do expect the operational runs continue to flip-flop, but if we did see them have some consistency, we could be setting up quite a cold first week of December. Again, if it's just high pressure inversion, it will be cold and frosty, but if we see it head northwards, easterly winds or northerly winds, then potentially could bring in the risk of some wintriness. But of course, we'll have to see what happens over the next few weeks. Of course, we've got the next sort of 10 days to get through where it generally is westerly, or at least the next week where it's still generally westerly, and then maybe that's day 7 to day 10 range, we can see higher pressure build in. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.